We so high, upper echelon. Look straight up.
Hello, this is Tons, and I'm here with a build that I refer to as the Cursed Claymore build, or also the Enlightened Curse Giver Knight build for GreedFall. Now this build is not one that I am sure whether or not it's OP, but I do feel like it has the potential to be an overpowered build if used correctly, which means using it better than I do in this video. Now, all of the testing was done on extreme difficulty. You can see the level difference. I tested this at level 18, and it's increased my survivability quite a bit because the strength of it being the curse that it gives. So let's get started and dig into this build. To start off with, I would say pick either warrior or magic. Now we are going to use two-handed. The reason why I'm going to go with magic as the starting class is because I hate the secondary weapon. I hate the idea of it because I don't use it. Like, I'm okay with the option to use a secondary weapon, but what I hate is that you are forced to have one equipped and I don't use it. So my solution, even though we're definitely making a warrior essentially, is to start off with magic. From here, the two most important things are going to be the long blades and the vulnerability storm. And I wish this game had a feature where you could just go as far as you want and then could hit that button and then it would just spend all the points if you had them up until that point. Like, that would have been a great feature because it's kind of annoying picking each and every one given how the cursor is like non-magnetic to what you're aiming for. But we're gonna build this out all the way, and at first I'm just going to show you the minimum you need for this. Just bear with me here. Now, some might be satisfied with that, but to me, you absolutely have to have this. That is a must. Okay? So, you need a minimum of 22 points to start this build. In my opinion, it is not worth it unless you can get to at least long blades and vulnerability storm. They are an absolute must. Beyond that, you can improve your weapon, at least up until that point. Balance, if that's important to you, then by all means get it. Duration, extending the time of the storm is important, but it's not necessary. Like, it is important, but it's not a necessity, because the effect for vulnerability storm is pretty strong already. Like, it lasts a significant amount of time, or at least it does for me, and I'll explain why I think that is. But already, right here, you're looking at 9.6 seconds that stasis lasts. Now, I did some testing before I settled on this build. And what I did, I tested every one of these. I tested Fury, I tested this one, I tested Shadow Burst. The only one I didn't test was Bomb, because Bomb does not fit the roleplay or the type of character that Hava is. So I did not see the point in testing out Bomb for its effectiveness or anything like that. But I figured out what Anointed Weapons was and tried that. And Anointed Weapons allows you to put alchemical preparations on your sword. So basically, it's like you temporarily enchant your weapon with whatever potion you put on it. So I tried using stasis with this, and the issue that I found was that the stasis that you use here is unaffected by the stasis here. So you putting all this in makes no difference to anointed weapons. So then I tried Storm and found that it's exactly the same stasis being applied to all enemies within range. That was a must. And some people might be satisfied with Storm just based on that. This build's primary means of killing armor is stasis after all, which when applied does 20 armor damage per second, which means this is roughly 10 seconds. That's 200 damage against armor. Now if you look at your weapons, a lot of times so far, for me anyway, just talking base stats, the highest damage I can do against armor is like 115 when I upgrade the weapon or what have you, and this is doing 200 when applied, and that's not even the end of it. But right here, I would say this is a good combination, but you at least want 22 points to spend so that you can get to long blades, and so you can get to vulnerability storm, which is the curse. And I just love compensators. Obviously you can do any version of this build you like. Perhaps you don't like the compensator because you feel like there's nothing to compensate for, and that's fine, good for you. But I love compensators in every game I play. Any RPG where I can wield a two-handed screw all cloud type sword compensating for everything, I'm gonna do it. And you know, that's that. Don't judge me. But beyond this, I would also recommend, at some point, I would definitely recommend going for this. In fact, if you have long blades, I would argue that you want to do this chain even before most of this. Keep in mind, I would say that if anything, I would prioritize these two things. But Steel Squall, I take it, but I don't really notice a difference personally. I just take it because it says it increases speed, but I honestly don't notice a difference. You might. I assume there actually is a difference, so speed is important since this weapon is slow as balls. So But outside of that, you have to make a choice. But you will, in my opinion, want to max this out. Fury generation is a big deal for this build because it relies on Storm. And Storm eats up all your Fury, 100% of it. And let's look at this. Let's look at what makes this such an important thing for this build. Roll. Well, that can help you get to the group of enemies easier, faster. So you roll towards them and then you hit Storm. Vulnerability Storm. And then they're all frozen. And then once they're unfrozen, they're still going to be cursed for another 15 seconds. And Vulnerability Storm, the great thing about it, in my opinion, is the attack speed. However, the magic resistance has another amazing thing about it. If you hit them with Vulnerability Storm while they're still under the effect of Vulnerability Storm, it will actually increase the strength of it. I've noticed that the amount of time, the effect duration, will last longer if you can hit them while they're still under the effects of Vulnerability Storm. Now that could be because duration will stack, or maybe it's because magic resistance is lower. Either way, if you can hit them twice with this, it'll stack the duration of their attack speed being slower. And that I really do notice. You notice the difference when they're so much slower than you. Now here's the thing. You take rolls so you can close the distance faster and hopefully hit more of them in the first shot. Like try to catch them when they're grouped together. Fury generation is important because you need Fury. But there is another way to overcome that, which you'll see during the fights. More Fury generation, backstab. Backstab and devious Fury. The main reason this is important is because your enemies can block out of stasis. That means even if you freeze them mid-swing, freeze them while they're jumping and they're still in mid-air, you freeze them, like you hit them with stasis while they're taking a piss. It doesn't matter. If you swing on them, they can block right out of stasis. So what I have come to notice so far is that this is never the case if you attack them from behind while they're in stasis. So once they're in stasis, you roll behind them, then smack them, and you will get a damage bonus and generate more Fury as a result. And that's what makes this chain so powerful. Like, this is a great chain to have. It was one that I was definitely overlooking before, but once I started using this build and then I looked again, I was like, no, I need this. This is incredible. Now, where to go from here? Well, that's up to you. Me, the only reason I wanted Divine Magic Ring is so that I can equip rings, and that meant that my secondary weapon wasn't going to show. Or so I wouldn't have some useless axe or sword sitting at my hip that I'm never going to equip. So I don't need to spend points on this at all. But you might want to. Personally, I take firearms because the other means of breaking armor that I prefer is firearms. And the reason for that is because even though this is your primary way of breaking armor, taking it away, there are some enemies like Nadags and certain creatures that are heavily armored, but they're also very magic resistant. And that means you'll cast this on them, and at best it'll last 3 seconds. Now, as stasis is right now, it won't even last 3 seconds. It'll literally only last 1, which makes this practically useless as far as taking their armor away. So for me, firearms are my primary means of taking armor down when stasis won't work. And this is how I'm built out. Honestly, every point beyond this, I mean, I spent stun, but every point beyond armor damage for me is useless. It's like, it's unnecessary. It's just completely extra. So, I mean, I guess I could take that. Balance for me isn't all that important, but I probably would have put that, if I was paying attention more, I would have put this in the balance instead of stun, because I pay even less attention to stun than I do balance. But every point beyond this is just icing on the cake. And that sets this up. Now, because we're using a compensator, obviously agility is going to be very important. We're knights or heavy armored, so you want at least 2 endurance. You can take it up to 3, but you'd be surprised how many strong armors that are technically heavy only require 2. So that's up to you to take it up to 3. If you want to focus more defense rather than offense, I suppose take that up to 3. Base it on your needs. Base it on the equipment you're thinking of equipping. If the armor you have and upgraded is good enough and it only requires an endurance level of 2, get endurance level 2. But I will say that you need a minimum of endurance level 2. For this, you need a minimum of 3. And I say a minimum of 3 because all of the good swords, all of the good compensators are agility level 3. In fact, I would argue that you are able to get a better sword for agility level 3 than 4 or 5. Because the only agility level 5 weapon I've found so far is non-upgradable. Like, you cannot increase the damage or armor damage on it at all. So keep that in mind. Take that. You need a minimum of 1 accuracy if you're going to go with pistols like I did. And the reason for that is because early on in this game, and because I did an episode 0 and I did a lot of starting over and testing, I found this weapon. I cannot remember where I find this pistol for the life of me. I'll show it to you now. The old dueling pistol. I have no idea where I find it, but I found it more than once. So if you are an explorer, you are going to find this weapon, and it requires an accuracy of 1. And this is one of the best pistols in the game. Do you hear me? Like, and you get it from the beginning. You will rarely see damage break the 400s for pistols, and this one does, like, from the very beginning. And then I put armor on it because this was intended to be the armor killer, so it has 90 armor damage. So that's why you want that. Since we're here, this is the sword we use, and that's going to be her primary weapon, but we'll come back to that. But you need a minimum of 3 agility, and take at least 1 mental power or willpower, and you'll see why. you will understand why in a second. Now, I believe I've taken this up to 4 agility, so 1 step beyond because of the Fury generation plus the added physical damage. We could go to 5, but instead what I'm going to do is take willpower again. And the reason for that, now this lasts for 12 seconds at the base. 12 seconds. Alright? So, it could be tempting to go ahead and take this to maximum. But to me, it's almost better to pick a certain spot, if that makes sense, and then just kind of spread yourself out a little bit, balance yourself out. Now, personally, I'm not going to ever spend more points into willpower. If anything, I'll take endurance, because I know some armors require endurance level 3, but the armors that we use don't. They only need 2. But you may want something even meatier than what we put on. And then this. Yeah, so I'm glad I said willpower. So yeah, willpower is what you want here. Now the thing that sucks about this, if you do care about your ring, for whatever reason, it's fine. Like if you decide I'm not going to focus on pistols, I'm going to focus on this, because magic ignores armor altogether, right? So say you decide you want to do that. I would suggest, instead of taking accuracy level 1, to take willpower level 3. The reason for that, maybe I took too long to look, but when I looked for rings, they all required level 2. They either required level 1 willpower, and they were green and weak as all hell, or they required level 3, and they were actually worth a damn. So, willpower level 2 will not get you any new upgrades for your rings. No rings appear to use willpower level 2 that I found. Most of them are either 1 or 3, 1 weak as balls, 3 strong as hell. So if you're not going to use pistols, go ahead, put 3 points in if you can there. Now maybe you're not as high as a level. Like if you're level 18, I forget how many points you get here. But understand, you can make do with just 3 on this front. You'll be perfectly fine with just 3 points spent in agility, just 2 here, and that might give you enough to go ahead and take it up a notch. Their talents, well, that's all up to you. Like, it doesn't matter here. You just have to decide for yourself what you want. I can never fully decide what I want here. So we're just going to go to equipment. And already introduce you to the main course, so to speak. This is the only weapon outside of the pistol that Hava uses. And because this build relies on stasis and firearms to break armor, I use the main weapon to focus purely on physical damage. That's its only job. Do physical damage. The damage sandwich. Now, do not be confused. I was not saying that no ring requires more than mental power than 4 or willpower than 4. I was just saying that some require 3 willpower, but none require 2. And that's what we have there. Or wait, my mistake. I meant to do like this. And then come back out and put the ring on. Put a ring on it. For Hava, putting a ring on it. And of course, this is the dueling pistol. That's what we upgraded to give it armor damage, because this is the armor killer for us. Mainly in situations, again, where stasis does not work. Now, for roleplay reasons, she wears this now. But you can go heavier, obviously. I found this out in the wilderness, explorating. And I really love both armors, truthfully. I love their look. I love their roleplay value. But, you know, pick the heaviest armor you can. You know, or whatever armor you like that gives you reasonable protection. But if you're not going to wear heavy armor, then you don't need to throw a bunch of points into endurance, like I had to. But allow me to show you. Actually, let's put this on, because it gives you an idea. And this is why you want at least 1 point in the willpower. The Hourglass Necklace. Stasis duration +6. That is a must-have item. And now when we look at stasis, 19 seconds. 19 seconds of stasis. Of killing that armor. Almost 20 seconds. 400 armor damage. This will strip the armor off anybody just about. As long as they're not so magic resistant that it drops. that it drops stasis almost immediately. But even with this chain, because of this chain that we're wearing, or this necklace, those enemies that would usually shrug off stasis in 1 second will now last at least 3 a lot of times. Some of them even 8 seconds. But you can actually get an even better chain. And that's why I put more willpower in. Another important note, Shield of the Enlightened. You're going to have to get it anyway, you may as well make use of it. I don't know how much better your survivability is with this, especially on extreme. On normal is probably so easy, it doesn't even matter. Like, you don't even need it. On extreme, it might be so extreme to where enemies just go through this like butter anyway. Regardless as to whether you think this helps you survive or not, I want to draw your attention to Fury Generation, which is always good, but there's one other purpose. If not, technically that is the purpose, and I'll show you what I mean. We may as well head towards here. Wait, why are we so slow? Oh, that's right. So to carry stuff, you probably want to go ahead and throw some points in here. You might want to do that. I forgot that Vigor does that. Or Vigor. However you want to say it. Say it however you want to say it. And enjoy. Now, the main thing to this build is crowd control. And then, you know, to me, Vulnerability Storm is like the most useful out of the 3 abilities that drain your fury by 100%. So look, this is like the main reason to use Shield of the Enlightened. See that? Now you'll notice that it'll stack all the way up to 120 seconds. Regardless, the main reason I'm using it is to fill that fury bar. Alright, so now it's empty. And you can just do that before any fight so that you can start the battle using the Vulnerability Storm. And now to show you why you want that willpower of 2. Okay, the merchant has decided to make a liar out of me. And I'm very upset about this. because I promise you, every single time I've come to this merchant, they've had the chain that I'm talking about. But this time he was like, no. And I mean every single time. Now, after a certain amount of time, merchants, their merchandise resets. And I'm not sure how long that takes. Meaning, I'm not sure if it's 24 hours or 48. So I just do 48, and it always resets at 48. And that's not to say he's gonna have it this time, but it is messed up. Cause I mean literally every time I've come here, he's had this chain, and this time he just didn't. He still doesn't. He still doesn't have the chain I'm talking about. I have no idea what's going on. I've never seen this. I've never had this happen before. And the thing is, he's the only one that I've seen that has it. Like, I've never seen it. I've never noticed anyone else selling it. Obviously, he's going to have the same merchandise, but we're going to check anyway. Yup, has the same garbage. I'm very upset right now. I'm highly upset that he's made a liar out of me. Let's check this merchant here. Maybe New Serene will surprise me. Not only does he not have the chain, but usually he has way more chains than that. Like, he usually has at least 5 or 6 chains that he sells, and one of them is the one I'm looking for, and he always has them. But I guess because we're making this video, it's like he's like, no, go to hell. Here we go. Check this out. This is the chain. This one. Look at it. Gives you more magic regen, which will help with firing stasis. Gives you more stasis duration by 2 seconds. And that may not seem like much, but that matters, especially with your magic resistant enemies. And now we look at stasis. 21 seconds, almost 22 seconds. Almost 40 extra damage on armor. Longer times for you to fight all the other enemies that didn't get hit by this. Because see, they're affected. And it's the same exact stasis. It's the same kind of stasis, only this one will add a curse to it. And it'll do the armor damage, it'll do all of this to him. So basically what you do, you use Shield of the Enlightened to get to 100% if you're not already there. And it will have the added benefit, whether you can tell it's a benefit or not, I really can't tell if it is or not, of protecting your allies some, giving them and giving yourself some added armor. Then you would run towards the enemy, then roll towards them to close the gap, hit them like that. You still have magic. Use stasis on any stragglers. What's great about this, what I usually try to do is keep the bar at half. So, I mean, usually as you're fighting, that bar will go up. And if you get 2 bars, depending upon the situation, read the situation, use your Fury Swipe. And that's what's great about this. Like, the problem I had with this was that, one, I didn't really notice that much speed. Like, maybe a little. But it only lasted for about 15 seconds. And you were giving up serious damage. Like, at a minimum, you should be hitting with 1,000 with your Fury Swipe. At least $1,000. Okay? So you'd be giving up $2,000 of damage. And that's really underestimating it. That's lowballing it. I mean, like on a regular swing where we're at now, we do 800 damage. So that's like 1600 damage on a Fury swipe. And if you hit them from behind with a Fury swipe, I mean, I've done 3000 damage before. Which means you'd be giving up 6000 damage to be a little bit faster. And with this, you're gonna want to use stasis because of crystallization. I would generally recommend that you do not do a Fury swipe without the enemy being under the effect of stasis, because this is where your money's at. 50 damage if you hit them while they're in stasis, and that applies whether you hit them with normal stasis, which you will do often, more so than this, or if you hit them with this will still apply. And remember, you hit with stasis, you go behind them. That's your best bet to avoid them blocking it. Creatures never block. They don't have the ability to block. So you can hit them with stasis and then hit them from the front. But you'll get more damage if you put points in history. You'll get way more damage if you get behind them and they're under stasis. But when you're fighting a Nideg, it's a huge challenge trying to do that, because they're very resistant to this magic. And that's why you want anything that boosts this, because 3 seconds versus 1, well, I can tell you for a fact at times it has given me just enough time to get behind them and Fury swipe them for extra damage. Another thing to note, you want to time your party, they're kind of dumb. They're not strategical. And I would say these two are kind of the worst when it comes to crowd control, Afra and Petrus, because they have area damage. Alright, he has Shadow Burst, she has Grenade. And whereas pretty much any companion you have will likely break your crowd control, sometimes very deliberately, and I don't understand why. These guys have the ability to break the crowd control with multiple enemies at the same time. So if you time your attack wrong, you'll apply the curse, you'll apply group stasis, and then she'll throw a grenade and they'll all be free again and killing your people. Which your people will still likely die quite a bit if you're playing on hard or extreme, but your survivability goes up. There's nothing like, switching the defensive mode and then as soon as you have a full bar of Furious, just dropping that curse back on them. So that's the build. That's the extensive build guide. And I hope it helps you. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you're able to customize this, that you can at least use this as a foundation, as something to consider. But no, I really enjoy this build. I really like the Cursed Claymore build, or the Enlightened Curse Giver Knight build. It's just incredible. It's nice dropping an entire group of enemies. Like, there are times where I've rolled right into them, did the storm, immediately built back up to halfway, did a Fury swipe, because keep in mind, you have time to do this. With 19 seconds, sometimes they're just sitting there for 19, so you could build right back up, and then in the middle of that frozen group, boom, I've killed 3-4 guys at the same time doing that before, thanks to crystallization and everything. So that's the build. I hope you enjoyed this video. I look forward to seeing you during the review and play. Until next time, take care.
Sir, I'm shooting webs like worldwide. They had it all the way to Yonkers. When they say Brooklyn, stand up. You better just fix your posture. And every hero needs his theme song. So you ain't got a chance, boy. What you think? I'm doing everything but the kitchen sink. I try to be feeling in the neighborhood. I know all of the little grannies wanna sip their teeth. And here you come, all parching in. All ugly like a round for cardigan. We can skip the monologue and the arguing. I'm like, here trying to start a brand. Start a let's rock and roll. So high up, I can see the flow. There he go. It's a play, it's a UFO. Run the phone. Let me know if you brought that action. It don't matter. Just let me know. I'm coming through with my crew to make a play. I don't need no super suit. I'm feeling bad. Don't be a hero. Turn around and walk away. Who in here trying to start a band?
Like a sticky situation when evil's looking for a chance. And I know we are the newest generation. We got the power in our hands. We're slinging through the kitchens.
Coming through with my crew to make a play. I don't need no super suit. I'm feeling. When they say Brooklyn, stand up. You better just fix your posture. And every hero needs his theme song. So here trying to start a band. Trying to start a fire. Who in here trying to start it?
I'm the flyest in the world. 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 Who you know that's better than me? Nobody. I'm the flyest in the world. I'm the flyest in the world.
We'll make you dance, land dwellers.
This world is slowing down. How can I fight it? How can I listen when there's no sound? Oh, the wolves are out. Yes, the wolves are out. Hold on to what you found. Days of the sea.